Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weissoon, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for today's modern hunter. Mossberg, American-built, American-strong. Vineyard Max, deer attractants created for the aroma of success, game feeders, and other hunting products. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. And the Choctaw Hunting Lodge, home of some of the finest hunting in North America. Now, here's Larry.
Good morning, Mr. Brad Fenson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How's Larry this morning?
Well, we just finished our TWA event not very long ago, and the DSC event as well as the Summer Expo. All those went absolutely fantastic. So to answer to my question, or your question to me, is it's been absolutely fantastic. So not a little bit warmer down here. Of course, unfortunately, we've had all kinds of really bad flooding here that's affected a lot of people. But, the rain comes when it does, and in some ways we're thankful. And, of course, unfortunately, it just came at such great amounts at times. It's been quite devastating. But, life goes on.
It does. Water is a wonderful thing in life. It can change our landscape drastically and give all of us hope for renewal, but it can also be a force to be reckoned with.
And that's kind of the case that's happened here. Over the years, we've had a lot of people move into the river country, to the low country, and particularly parts of the hill country, unfortunately, they are subject to flooding. So, but like I said, life goes on, and the good Lord blesses us in many different ways. And we ask that He comfort those who have been so drastically and horribly affected by the floods that we've had. But, there's again, life goes on. Now, we're talking about some scary adventures here, and, with some of the people, particularly here in Texas. I first of all, tell people who Brad Fenson is. Brad Fenson, for me, is one of my heroes that lives in Canada, does so many different things when it comes to anything having to do with the outdoors, whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, whether it's cooking. And you truly are one of my heroes, Brad. You have been for many years, but can you add a little something else? And then I've got a bunch of questions I'm really anxious to ask of you.
Well, when people ask me to describe myself, I used to say an outdoor writer, and then I called myself a communicator, but outdoor communicator probably is more fitting these days when we add in podcast, television, radio, social media. Like, there's so many ways that we reach our audience compared to the past when we had a print magazine. And basically my byline is my passions in life. I write about hunting, fishing, camping, conservation, and cooking. And whenever possible, I have my family included in that.
And you have twin daughters who are absolutely darling, a fabulous wife who, among other things, all three of those share the same passions, I think, that you do, which makes it all that much more special.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those of us that love the outdoors, when we have family that celebrate our activities with us and for us, it's a huge reward in life.
It truly is. Now I know a little bit about you and all those kind of things, but you sent me a bio, and I've got to ask you about this. You had a winter adventure some time ago, and I call it truly an adventure, where you had to walk 180 miles to get to safety. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. I did a mountain goat hunt in the Wilmore Wilderness area of Alberta years ago with a fella I went to college with, and we got way back into the backcountry, 2 days backpacking nonstop from sun up to sundown, sometimes well after sundown. Got in there, and we had a snowstorm that filled the mountain passes with like 12 feet of snow. And we did shoot a goat, but it was a grunt getting out. It really, you had to dig deep to find the energy and the mental strength to do it. Yeah, I lost 24 pounds in 8 days, and we walked, I believe it was 186 miles total to get out.
Oh my gracious! That you talk about a scary adventure. That certainly had to be it. I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself in the process of all that as well too, though. That you finally figured out that you actually could do it.
Yeah, you know, when a person has to dig deep for anything in life that's important, it's funny what you can come up with.
I can only imagine, to be very honest with you, and this, and honest and frank, and all those other kind of things. That's an adventure. I'd love to share a bunch of the others that you've been on. That one, I think I would want to pass.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do it again. I have that T-shirt, and I don't even want to wear it.
I can understand. I can truly understand that. Brad, you know, I've had some chances to hunt together and all those kind of things, and really looking forward to another opportunity or two here, hopefully this fall. But I want to try to do, if it's okay with you, I want to come back some other time. You're involved in so many different things. You and I share a passion for black bear hunting. I want to visit about that. You and I share a passion for all kinds of things. You're an absolutely fantastic cook in so many different ways. And the only thing I want to mention something about, and then we're going to do this in another podcast where we talk about this a little bit more, but when I was up there on a bear hunt, you and your lovely wife and your two daughters prepared a meal for several of us, and you had some pickled sausage. That, I'll tell you what, of course, being from a kind of a Germanic extraction kind of thing, you know, sausage is dear to us, but I'll have to tell you that was some of the very best sausage I have ever tasted anywhere.
Oh, thank you, sir. I mean, it's food is a passion, and we love sausage of all kinds. Most years I probably make close to 20 different varieties. But the pickled sausage just seems to be something that is ideal for sitting around on the deck with company, or in the deer blind, or even in a waterfowl blind with some friends. It's not just sausage. It elevates it to something else for certain occasions, if that's a good way to describe it.
You know what? It's an absolutely fabulous way to describe it. One of the things that I kind of sent you some message about that I really wanted to talk about in this one particularly, and again, with your permission, I'd like to come back and do several more as we head toward the end of the fall. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, and it's finally time as far as I'm concerned.
Anytime, Larry. It's always great talking with you.
Oh, it's fabulous visiting with you, because I always learn something, and you teach me to appreciate different things. And one of those things that I know that you got into not too very long ago, and as a background to me, people always ask me, Larry, have you ever bow hunted? And my standard statement to them is, yes, I did, and then I grew up. Because the last deer that I shot with a bow was in 1984.
Wow.
Now, after having been around you a little bit, I kind of didn't really catch the bug, but I got really interested in crossbow hunting, and got in touch with some of our friends that same friends you and I share, and with guys involved with 10-point crossbows, and got a crossbow, and actually ended up taking an ancient, unbelievably small kind of deer this past year on my lease in West Texas with a crossbow. I've got a crossbow hunt coming up of black bear on the Choctaw Hunting Lodge there in Oklahoma. It's the best time, and really the only time when those bears are really there on that huge expanse of land that where they're attainable, or hopefully get an opportunity at, is that during the bow season. And to me, and the great thing is you can use crossbows. So tell me a little bit about crossbowing. And I know that you, on one of our hunts, took an absolutely fabulous bear as well, too, that I got to see. That the bear was beautifully color phased. Tell me about crossbows and how effective you think they are. And you've had the opportunity, and I'll preface this with one more statement before I turn it over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the one thing I've always admired, among other things, many other things about this gentleman I'm talking to, is that he tells you the truth. He doesn't. If there's a problem with something, he will mention it. If it's a great product, he'll tell you why. And if there's a product that's almost great and could be that way, he'll tell the manufacturers what they can do to get it to that level. So with that introduction, tell me a little bit about your experiences with crossbows.
Well, I'm trying to think back of when I first started hunting with them. It was many years ago. And things have changed a lot. The technological changes that we see in our entire hunting community are very broad and vast. Whether we're talking about optics, bullets, different calibers, stuff like that. But if we look at the crossbow itself, the technology that's gone into it has changed. Limb designs, cams, strings, stabilizers, triggers. They've really made it a very effective tool to use to be extremely accurate, and they're extremely lethal. Like a crossbow, I find hunting bears, I actually track bears less distance when I'm hunting with a crossbow than if I'm shooting with a rifle. And the hemorrhaging that causes with a good broadhead, the lethality of it is impressive, I'll put it that way. The things I try to keep in mind when I'm using a crossbow, that it is archery equipment. It's not your rifle replacement. It gives you an opportunity to hone your hunting skills, get in close and personal with game, revisit being quiet, reducing motion, all those types of things. All those hunting skills that have culminated from all of our adventures and experiences over the years, that's what makes us successful. And going back and doing any type of archery hunting, including with crossbows, really brings a lot of fun back into the hunting game. Those close adventures, most of my deer are shot at 30 yards or less. I have shot crossbows at 100 yards at targets, but personally I don't believe that we should be hunting at that distance, and I'll explain why. I looked at, had some engineers help me look at arrow drop at 100 yards. It's over 12 feet, and there's an awful lot that can occur.
Wow.
Overhanging branches to side winds to different things, or the fact that it takes just over a second for that arrow to get there. Doesn't sound like a lot of time, but if an animal turns a little bit, lifts its head, takes a step forward, you've gone from a lethal shot to one that you are dreading having to deal with. So most of my stuff I keep under 60 yards. 60 yards is my maximum hunting distance, and if I need to get closer, I need to call on myself to improve my hunting skills or use the hunting skills that I have to do so. The reason I like 60 yards is because it's still very effective. And it goes back to early in my hunting career with crossbow. I was hunting in Nebraska, and it was a dead still day, which is hard to believe for the sandhills in Nebraska. Yes. The wind blows there all the time. But I had a really nice 10-point whitetail buck come out, and it was feeding in front of me at 38 yards. And I thought, perfect, this is great opportunity, had the crosshairs on it, but it was so dead still that buck jumped the string. It could hear the crossbow fired, and luckily for me, the crossbows are fast enough that I spined it. So it did go down right there, and it expired extremely quickly, but it really made me stop in my tracks to think, wow, again, this is archery equipment. And arrow flight, noise from the bow. Bows are way quieter than they were even 10 years ago.
Oh, yes.
They do make a sound, and animals do react. It's their instinct, It's that fight or flight instinct of the whitetail that makes them so hard to hunt, and especially with archery equipment. So I find setting ethical limits on yourself is important. And I've come home empty-handed because of it. The largest 4x4 whitetail buck I ever saw in my life was in Missouri, and I had him at 68 yards. I knew I could make the shot. I just didn't know what he was going to do because, again, it was dead calm, and I passed. I watched him walk away. So I would much rather do that than wound it, and appreciating the equipment, what it does, and appreciating my hunting skills and being able to use those is what crossbow hunting is for me. It extends my seasons. It gives me opportunity to get other people into the field. Like my girls at 7 years of age, they can shoot a crossbow more accurately than they can shoot a firearm. There's no recoil. There's hardly any noise. It's just it's a fun tool to experience and play with and share.
You made some very interesting points throughout there, and I get tickled. I want to go back to some of the trajectory thing and tell a very quick story. I had some friends that wanted to get into long-range shooting, and so they did. They put up a 1,200-yard range. They cut a lane through a bunch of trees with overhanging limbs, but, they could see the target, and the first several shots never even got close to the target till somebody walked up and says, "Do you have any idea how high that bullet is out there where those trees are?" I said, "Do you ever see those leaves falling down where you're pulling the trigger?" And that was an interesting point. And also, you lose, to me, even though you've got a really sharp instruments there that's cutting, you still lose some downrange energy on those things. Then the other side of all that is, and I want to come back to a couple other things. You mentioned this, the sound aspect and the recoil, particularly with younger hunters or possibly somebody that's never shot that much or hardly shot at all. I learned a long time ago that most people are a lot more afraid of that sound of that rifle going off than they are the sound, the recoil that comes. And with those, you don't need to go out and buy a silencer. They're essentially relatively silent to begin with, and I can see where that would be so much easier to get, particularly a younger person, to getting them into shooting kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit about equipment. You have an opportunity to try all kinds of different crossbows, and I know you've got some favorites, and you're welcome to tell people about them if you want to, or not, whatever your choice is. As far as poundage and those kind of things, and selecting the crossbow for somebody that's going to say hunt primarily whitetail deer, but they've been dreaming about possibly taking a black bear or maybe somewhere down a moose or an elk. What should they be looking at?
I'll summarize that real quick, Larry. I just finished a review. I had 11 different crossbows here. I had 10 points. I had Wicked Ridge. I had Ravens. I had Excalibur, Axe, Killer Instinct, like all the main brands that are out there. We had them. We tested them. The good news is they have all come to a pinnacle of engineering and design that there is not a bad one in the bunch. There's something to fit everyone's budget expectations. There is some quality differences when it comes to cocking mechanisms and decocking and overall components, but in terms of hunting black bears or whitetails in North America, any of the modern crossbows that you purchase that are made in 2025 are lethal weapons that will produce outstanding results, and nobody would be disappointed in them. I can't say that there's one that would not work. They all work. It's just that some work better. It's like asking somebody what their favorite caliber is for hunting deer. Might get different answers, but every one of those calibers will effectively kill a deer and do it in a humane way. And archery is, it's funny because there's different thoughts about crossbow. The vertical bow hunters think that it's an unfair advantage, or that you don't have to practice as much. But I don't care whether you're shooting a firearm, a crossbow, or a vertical bow. Practice is what makes us great hunters. And no matter what crossbow you have, if you practice with it and you understand it, you will become very proficient with it and enjoy some huge rewards and success down the road. I shoot targets at 10-yard intervals with every bow that I have, And it's amazing what you can learn about arrow flight and trajectory with different designs and different speeds and stuff. But getting to know any individual bow is really the most important thing that you have to focus on if you're going to be an archer with any type of equipment.
Let's talk a little bit about the bolts that you shoot. Is there anything specific that you would recommend to somebody? Not, and it doesn't need to be a brand, but certain things to look for as far as the bolts, and then from there we'll drift over to the broadheads as well, or mechanical broadheads, whatever the case might be. But in selecting a bolt I know there's probably specific requirements essentially for poundage and that kind of thing, or am I mistaken in that as well too?
Oh yeah, there's arrow guides to follow in terms of how much energy that arrow can transfer from the bow. That's really the important word to use, is transfer, because you're taking all that energy that's in the string and the limbs and you're transferring it to a single projectile, and you want to control where it goes and how fast it goes. So like I shoot 10-point when I'm hunting, just because I find that it provides me the largest advantages overall. When I look at everything that the crossbow does, I have a forward limb design and a reverse limb design. Again,
right.
About that briefly. The forward limb design always has the string. The string pull is shorter. The power stroke is shorter, but when you turn those limbs around and it goes way out to the end of that crossbow, you get a longer draw area or power stroke, which means more speed. The longer an arrow is on the string, the faster it can go, the more energy it can transfer from the bow. But when I first started, we had aluminum arrows, and they were unforgiving. Right. Even shooting targets, you would bend them, you would break them, you would do all kinds of stuff. But the new carbon arrows are wonderful. Most bows shoot a standard diameter, and most of them are a minimum of 400 grains, or right around 400 grains, which makes for a very lethal projectile. When we look at kinetic energy with the weight of your arrow and the speed they're traveling and the broadheads we use, crossbows are well designed for filling your freezer with venison, and that's a really good way to look at it. But I would always suggest the carbon arrows. Some of the new crossbows take a micro diameter arrow, which means they fly faster. Can increase penetration because they're not as big in diameter. It's like if you go to the doctor and get punched with a big needle, it hurts more because it's more surface area on the skin. Well, a smaller arrow does the same. But there's give and take with all of that, and that's that energy equation. And the standard diameters, heavier arrows, I think are what people should stick with. Speed isn't everything. It's if it goes through an animal in 0.6 of a second or 0.8 of a second is irrelevant.
It really is, isn't it? My gracious, you're right. And basically, does it depend on the bow design or the forward or backward as to the length, or the length's pretty much standard in everything?
No, it will change the length. You need to make sure. Here's a really important message for crossbows. You need to make sure you have the right arrow that can sustain or deal with the energy of the bow. The most important part on the entire system is the nock on your arrow. If you have the wrong nock, and there are very highly specialized, like the HPX nock from 10-point, which ensure that string cannot jump over the arrow. There's so much energy there that sometimes it's hard to harness it. So engineers have come up with ways to make sure that string cannot come off the arrow and that all the energy is transferred. If you use the wrong nock, you could dry fire the bow. Chances limbs will blow up. The strings are going to fly off. There's the potential to get hurt. So knowing what nock you're using on any arrow is critical. And even when we talk about 10-point crossbows over the last 10 years, there's several different nock designs for the different crossbows as technology has evolved. So always, if you buy a new bow, whether it's new or used, get the user manual or go online and check to make sure you know and understand what nock to use, how to identify it, and how to set it up properly when you're loading it into a crossbow.
Great advice right there, just in itself. I've tried to read up a little bit, talk to a few people, but you're already teaching me a whole lot more than I'd ever even realized, and I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about what's on the tip of that. is broadhead, mechanical broadhead. What's kind of the game plan? You get right down to it.
Most of our broadheads nowadays have come a long ways too. Anyone that's been in the archery game for what I'll say is decades probably remembers early on when the mechanical broadheads came out, people said they'd fail. They didn't open up. They didn't do this. And a lot of people have never migrated over to using them because of that old sentiment. But whether you're using fixed blade or mechanical broadheads nowadays, there isn't a bad one in the bunch as well. I mean, they have fine-tuned the engineering to make them very lethal, very sharp. I shoot sever broadheads. They're one of my favorites. They're a mechanical broadhead. I have harvested over 50 animals with the severs.
Wow.
And it's hard to explain this, but you'll understand it. We've all tracked a lot of game. I track game a lot less using a good broadhead.
Yes.
The hemorrhaging that occurs when you use a broadhead provides a blood trail that is much better than if you use a firearm. And it really is a game changer. You don't always get that. We've seen black bears that have incredible fat supplies and they get a wound and it plugs up the channel. But, I've shot dozens of black bears with arrows and with different broadheads, and they never go too far. You're always able to recover them, or thank goodness I've been able to so far. So, it is something to look at. And a real eye-opener for me is when I went to Africa 2 years ago. I took mechanical broadheads, shot a whole bunch of plains game, blue wildebeest through both shoulders and got a clean pass through. I shot an impala ram quartering to me, and it went out the far flank, and we found the arrow 70 yards beyond where the impala was standing.
Good gosh.
So the energy is incredible, and it was an eye-opener for my PH because, I had wanted to try to hunt a buffalo, and they said, wow, you can't. There's just no way. So, we hunted hard for 2 weeks, and he got to see what a crossbow can do and what those broadheads did. And he said, you know what, your last couple days here, let's go see if we can. I've got a couple big, old, nasty cow Cape buffalo that we would like to get rid of. Why don't we go out and see if we can get one with the crossbow? So, it does change opinion. It does matter. They are lethal. They are well controlled with that energy. It's hard to understand that an arrow going that fast and hitting the target and being able to stay on track is really important. But again, those severs, the blades pivot back and forth so that if one end of it hits a bone, it'll push up. The arrow will still go straight, but the blades pivot back and forth as they need to find its way in a straight line through your target. So again, advantages are extreme when you understand them, and finding things like the right broadhead that you have confidence in is what makes the biggest difference overall.
Interesting you mentioned the sever, because that's what I ended up using on my particular one, and I can't remember the model right now, whatever it is. You'd ask me, I'm still learning about crossbows, obviously. I'm learning a lot every time I take them out, but that's what I used on the whitetail that I shot, and what my intentions are to use on the black bear that we've got coming up. And those advantages of that particular broadhead that you mentioned became very obvious because probably like you, when I take an animal down, I cut that animal into that animal. I want to see exactly what that arrow in this instance, or bolt or broadhead at this instance, did, or what that bullet weight or that bullet design did on the animal. And you could tell it with the angle at which I shot, that's exactly what happened as far as that broadhead kind of almost pivoting, not really pivoting, but the size pivoting back and forth. And it made a tremendous amount of difference as far as I'm concerned. And I can't wait to try to put one into a black bear there in Oklahoma coming up here in not maybe a month and a half, 2 months away, something like that. Maybe a little bit more than that. But I can't wait to see what he'll do on one of those great big old fat black bear up there. Let's talk a little bit, too, about sights. What do you have a preference on sights on crossbows?
I've looked at a lot of them over the years. I even used one, I met a fella in Texas that had a neck injury and can't get his head down to the stock to actually look through scope, so he developed a peep sight for his crossbow, and it worked extremely well. I've used a number of different scopes. One of the first, Zeiss was one of the first to come out with a dedicated crossbow scope, but a lot of them have followed suit. Mm-hmm. Husqvarna has one that's graduated to predict your arrow drop and stuff like that, your trajectory.
Right.
10-Point has several different models they use with theirs that are all calibrated for the speed. They have a speed dial. So, the new TX440 shoots right around 440 feet per second. You turn the speed dial to that. There's direct hold reticles for 20, 30, 40, 50 yards right in the scope. And it makes it pretty easy to get sighted in, dialed in. And if you're good at judging distance, you can be deadly accurate. Burris does make a great range-finding optic scope that you push the button, it ranges it, gives you the direct hold, you shoot. Garmin also makes one. Either of those are great options. There's more new ones coming out of the market all the time, but those were the ones that sort of led the way. They've been fine-tuned over the last couple of years and are even easier to use and more accurate. So lots of different things. People have to find what works for them. A standard crossbow scope with graduated reticles and illuminated reticles and the ranges right on those different hold points in the scope are pretty easy to use. Again, until you learn a lot about your crossbow and arrow trajectory, sometimes the ranging optics force you to not look at overhanging limbs and stuff that can be in the way. So
right.
Some of them will give you an arrow trajectory, others don't, but good old-fashioned know-how and knowing what your bullet or your arrow is doing and what the trajectory is and how it changes in even 10-yard increments is really important. You can see that with the optics that we do use on crossbows, but you want to get something that's quality because a lot of us are whitetail hunters and our opportunities come early or late. And if you go with just a standard run-of-the-mill scope, you're going to find that light gathering capabilities are very limited, and that'll be the most limiting factor of your optics. So that's the one thing you want to pay attention to is even if you're in an archery shop, have them turn off the lights or take it into a back room where you can turn a light switch off and look through there and see what happens to your ability to see through it really quickly because quality optics, whether you're hunting with a firearm or a bow, are a game changer when it comes to certain species, different light conditions, different environments. Illuminated reticles are also important. You get a black reticle, poor lighting conditions, and try to find an aiming point on a black bear, it almost becomes impossible. So don't overlook the scopes. Try to find a premium model. And if you get a chance to play with the ranging ones, there's a lot of aspects about them that you're going to like. I used that Burris optic in Africa, and I found pinpoint accuracy, and I harvested 8 different animals with it, so it was pretty rewarding.
I learned very much the hard way. The only time I'd ever hunted with a crossbow, I was up on the Choctaw about 3 or so years ago, and I had not yet purchased a crossbow, but was able to borrow one from one of the folks there on the ranch, and lo and behold, of course, a big black bear, and they have black bear that the biggest one they've killed there is like 615 pounds. Don't kill very many of them, but a bear probably that was about a 350, 400 pound bear came in very late one afternoon. I was all set up, had been sitting all day because those bears come in sometime in the morning. You'd never know. So we would get there before daylight. I would get there before daylight. Sat there for like 5 or 6 days. And finally, the last afternoon kind of thing, this bear comes in. It's very dark. I look through the scope. I cannot see the black crosshairs against the black animal in any form or fashion. And finally, just thought, well, I'd come off the bear, come back on. Finally, I said, no, it's not going to work. I'm not going to gut shoot this bear because we'll talk about that in just a little bit as well too. But finally, the bear walked away. So the one that I have now is it does have a lighted reticle, and to me, I cannot stress that enough as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to hunt black bear, particularly like we're doing in the fall here, and where there's still a fair amount of cover, and their bears have a tendency, it's still warm, so they're coming in real late, particularly if you're hunting down kind of, in Oklahoma, Arkansas kind of area. And, but yes, lighted reticle to me, that was a key for one of the things I really enjoy about the one that I'm shooting right now. And I mentioned that. I mentioned the bear. You shot a lot of bear. I'm going on this bear hunt with a crossbow. Where should I be holding to try to place that bolt when I pull the trigger?
I always put a fist length behind that front leg and shoulder. I don't like necessarily dead center. I think that's a little too far back. I certainly do not want to shoot a bear in the shoulder because you're in front of the vitals. But, make a fist, look at it, put it a fist length behind where you come up behind that front leg, and you'll be right in the kill zone. They never go too far. You can either take both lungs or the top of the heart and the lungs, and most of the time they're not going to make it 30 yards.
That's what I'm hoping is going to happen there. We've been seeing some really big bear up there. And of course, those are all black bear as opposed to, I'm talking about black color phase, and our lack of color phase on that property there. But I know you guys have got some fantastic color phase bears up north. I'm anxious to get back up there. Bear hunting is one of my favorite things, one of my passions when you get right down to it. And the crossbow has opened up that opportunity to me to hunt there in Oklahoma during their archery season, which I unfortunately do not have a horrendous amount of time to spend. I can't draw the weight that I used to, and I used to, when I did hunt, I generally hunted with a recurve, and that to me is still a fun way. If I was going to go back and do anything, I'd probably do. But with this crossbow, it's opened a bunch of doors for me, and all those kind of other good things. I know it's doing the same thing for several other people because I got two people coming with me. One of them is a gentleman. His name is Mr. Edgar Cotton. Edgar is probably about 84, 85, and the ability for him to even draw back a compound is fairly difficult. But with that crossbow, I can tell you that gentleman, like anything that he pulls the trigger on, is extremely efficient. So it's opened up some doors for guys like him and a bunch of others with hunting with those things. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Question. I've got to go ahead. Well, really, what I want to do at this point, we've got a little bit of time left before I've got to get on to a meeting with DSC. But Brad, you've hunted with a crossbow a lot. You've taken. What are some of the animals you've taken? And if you had to say choose one or two animals that really come to mind with your crossbow, I'd like to hear about those as well too.
Well, my primary is white-tailed deer, but I've harvested a lot of different animals, a lot of bears. Like I said, I went to Africa. Probably one of my most memorables was a white-tailed buck I shot on my own property. I watched him for several years. I watch shows from Texas and stuff where they see these deer and they pass them up. They wait. In Canada, that's hard to do. It seems like our coyotes and wolves take care of them, and they have such big territories that you might see a deer and never see it again, or it might be 2 years before you see it again. But I made a decision to pass up a buck that looked very nice. He had an extra beam growing on the inside of his left antler, and last year he actually showed up with 2 days left in the season, and he had grown immensely. He had double beams on both sides. And
oh my goodness.
I put an arrow through him, and it wasn't too hard to follow the trail, and recovered him, and it was a very fond hunt, very rewarding in many different ways, and a very good quality deer for what I call as one of my home deer. I think doing it at home made it even more special.
I can see where that would, and of course, I've been very fortunate you invited me to come out. We kind of looked around your little property there, the property that you have, and what a fabulous place to do what you do, and a fabulous place to raise your family as well too. I think that I was truly impressed with not only your family. Of course, I've been impressed with you for a long time, but the property on which you live. That maybe a little jealous, if not maybe a little bit envious of what you have right there. But I was truly proud of that fact. Brad, you appear in so many different places. I know you've got, I want you to tell people a little bit about where they can find you here, but I know that you've written for, I'm guessing pretty close to 60, 65, maybe even 70 different outdoor publications, both in print and digital. And of course, you've done so many different things. You have your own podcast. Tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us where people can find you maybe a little bit more often than they do other places.
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed to be in this industry and have the work that I do, Larry, and I have written for over 60 different publications, and I equate that back to where I'm from. You know, I'm fortunate to have been born and bred and raised in Western Canada, and to me that is a huge advantage because I get to hunt waterfowl and see hundreds of thousands of birds a year and upland birds, and every year I can buy whitetail, mule deer, moose, elk, bighorn sheep, all those tags right across the counter. And so I get spoiled. I've got lots of experience because I have lots of opportunity, and it's all a function of where I live and what I love to do. So it's pretty special. Cooking those wild proteins is also a big passion. You know, I do 2 recipes a month for NRA online, and if people want to find some wild game recipes, I think I now have over 400 online with them alone. I'm a waterfowl chef with Delta Waterfowl. If you Google my name, Brad Fenson, it usually, and you can use the plus sign if you want to find out about whitetails or crossbows or elk or bighorn sheep or whatever the topic is, because like I said, I'm spoiled where I live. I get to do it all. So.
And again, I'm kind of envious of that. I mean, we're fortunate and blessed in Texas with whatever we have, but you guys have so many fabulous animals up there, and the fishing. We didn't even touch on the fishing, but we'll do that. We'll do that in another one of these episodes. My intentions are to have you back numerous times because you're such a fount of information from so many aspects, and particularly where you live and all those kind of things and the opportunities that you and your families have up there. But is there a Facebook, website, social media, any one particular spot that you'd like to send people to?
You know, I've kept it really simple to find me over the year. If you know how to spell my name, that's my handle on Facebook and Instagram, Brad Fenson. Pretty easy to look up. So that's the best place to find me and see what my regular activities are, or to scroll back and see some of the stuff in the past. But yeah, that's probably the best way to keep track of me. And if you have a topic you want, like I said, to Google my name or use your favorite search engine, use my name and the plus sign for the topic, there's probably something there that'll come up.
Yes, there's a lot of things that come up, and we're so thankful that you've put them there, Mike. I really appreciate that. Brad, I look forward to catching up with you a little bit later, and we will do another podcast. We'll figure out maybe 1 or 2 subjects. You know, we're not that far away from whitetail deer. Maybe we'll visit a little bit about whitetail deer or some moose hunting or something like that. Try to do that maybe in the next 3 or so weeks if it's okay with you. And as a result of all this, please, thank you so much for being with us around the DC Campfire. We'll ask one favor of you, and that's to give your lovely, beautiful wife a hug for me and your 2 daughters as well, too. And tell them I really look forward to sharing some more of the Fenson family pickled sausage in the future.
Sounds great. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Larry, and thanks for sharing some of the messages with the DSC Campfire folks. I think it's important to share our information, share it. It's not something that we want to keep to ourselves, and I know that you hold those same values, so keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back here around the campfire, the DSC Campfire, next week.
DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn has also been brought to you by The Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, the Texas Wildlife Association, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.